Hello everyone, Dan Swift here, founder and CEO at Numentum, and welcome to the Speaker Series, where we spotlight some of the most interesting minds in the world of revenue generation. At Numentum, we help forward-thinking B2B organizations create better buyer experiences and deliver new momentum to their revenue engine. On this episode of the Speaker Series, we speak with André Borusiak, head of Vodafone Global Enterprise for Germany. We have a great conversation around how the pandemic drove change, the importance of trusting your people, and social selling in theory and in practice. So let's start with what you're doing right now. You're the Director of Multinational Accounts in Germany. Can you start by sharing with our listeners just a little bit about Vodafone Business? I really want to hear about your role, and then also how does the company differentiate itself from its competitors?
Well, Vodafone is a global brand renowned for its carrier services, actually. And I look after our biggest companies and customers all over the world. So we have a global operations. We are present in a lot of countries all over the world. And where we don't have operations, we have partners. So what we do actually is to basically help our customers digitize. It's that easy. By using our mobile connectivity, by using our fixed connectivity. We also have cloud computing assets. We have a big IoT space, so we are market leader in IoT connectivity, which we will be talking about later a little. So there's a lot of spaces we can help our customers become more digital and become more successful, actually. And my role is, and the role of my team is to serve our biggest customers and understand actually what are their needs, what's our products, our solutions, what can be done for them, and how can we bring like technology into life and bring it to the customers and be successful.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Now you're coming up to about 2 years in the role, and I know you started it December 2019, so right before the world was hit by the pandemic. So how did Vodafone respond with so many people working from home literally overnight?
Well, for me personally, looking back, the last 2 years have been amazing. I couldn't have believed what is possible, just running a business out of the home offices, right? So for our employees, I think it wasn't a big change because, our salespeople, our global account managers, national account managers, they're used to work from the home office and have their customer meetings and then be back in the home office. But the difference, I think, was that, there weren't any customer meetings anymore. So it's not the problem not to be in the office and in the Vodafone spaces, but the problem is not to be at the customer side anymore. And I think this is what we all needed to get used to. And, digital tools helped us a lot, during that time to engage with our customers and to understand, how can we communicate with them. So what I felt over the last years, what was really that we needed to also be close to our employees, right? So it's different if you see each other every day and get a feeling around, who's feeling good, who needs some support. And if you do that virtually, you need to have another kind of communication culture, and you have to also make sure that you touch base with each and every one of your employees every now and then, just to understand, who needs support and what can be done to, be efficient and also be, a good employer in the end.
Yeah, and you all, so many employees speak so incredibly highly of you, particularly in your leadership style, but more on that later. Now, Vodafone and Empire, we started working together almost 12 months ago. Actually 12 months ago, almost to the day. And for our listeners, this is testament to you and the people in Germany and your leadership. Your German team created more than 100 million euros in pipeline in just 5 months or thereabouts from this program. So why do you think your colleagues in Germany lean so heavily into these techniques, particularly LinkedIn and video, to engage customers?
Well, if you say it like that, it really sounds easy, right? Just drive pipeline and create revenue, right? So, but it's not easy. I think. I think one biggest thing is that the pandemic really drove the change, right? Because when you don't have any face-to-face customer meetings, you have to think about, how do you engage with your customers? And I think LinkedIn is a pretty good tool to engage with customers, to understand, what are the big trends in the marketplace, who are the people to talk to. And I think this is what my teams really understood and what they embraced. But I really felt that it's not, you click it on and then it's working. That's where you came in, actually, because you have a pretty sophisticated, if I may say, series of training, because you don't, train people for a day and then it's gone, and you expect people to practice, but you sliced it, in little tiny bits. We had sessions every other month, or every month, actually. And what I really liked about your sessions was it's not, about theory, it's about understanding how's the tool working, but also about, getting into practice and understanding what can be done. And one important aspect, I mean, I think a year ago, we started to implement what we call spirit behaviors. It's a special culture of Vodafone to, be innovative and be young and active and always top notch. And one of our spirit behaviors is experiment and learn fast. And when you started to teach our people to, use video, there was some reluctance, right? So there was like, video, why? I don't need video in a business context. And there, our spirit behavior really helped us to, just try it out, understand what's working, fail, get feedback, try it again, and become better every day. And this is, I think, kind of momentum that we both saw in my team's work, and that's really nice to see.
Yeah, and I think they feel safe. The environment that you've created for them is a safe environment where it's okay to fail. We work with some companies, or have worked with some companies, where maybe that culture isn't there, and people feel a little nervous about putting themselves out. Then for our listeners, we're talking about creating 45 or 60-second videos and sending them to people that maybe you don't know at a customer organization or a prospect firm. And that's not a skill that salespeople have had before, but it was fun watching people get out of their comfort zones, right?
Exactly. And I think what's also kind of astonishing is in our last session, you remember that you highlighted some people because they did something special during the last year, and there were 3 out of 8, I think, were coming from one of my sales teams. Which, for me, if you get momentum in one team, that drives all the others, and this kind of momentum is something that really drives the change internally, and you need to get that momentum going. And if it goes, then it's working more easily than if it feels like hard work, right?
Before we start working with companies, oftentimes the feedback is, particularly in Germany, our sellers are not going to use LinkedIn. All of our customers, they use Xing, right? And that's for our listeners. There's a competitive platform to LinkedIn in Germany, Xing. Kind of. Well, that's what I want to ask you about. So, what is your take on these two platforms? Because and has it changed at all since we worked together?
Well, I think I've been a Xing member for, I don't know, 20 years, 15 years. I don't know when they started, but actually it's a pretty German-focused platform. So I think it's what you just said is right for like German-oriented companies that you can connect on Xing. If you are international, working on a global level, I think there's no way not to use LinkedIn, actually. So for me personally, Xing is kind of a address book for, phone numbers and email addresses, but it's not a way to get any news or understand, what are the key people in the industry talking about, or gaining insight. This is LinkedIn for me. So I think that the best business platform I know about right now in a social space is really LinkedIn, actually.
Right, and I want to take you back a little bit to when we first started this program, and I think a proportion of your people were using LinkedIn, right? Because they understood that it was a global platform. Not everyone, but most people. But what were one of the two almost eye-opening moments or aha moments for people, do you think, when they started going through the journey with us, specifically on LinkedIn?
Well, I think it's always, if you try out a new tool and you get to use it and get to know the functionalities, and then you try it out and then you understand what's working or not. Because in theory, it's always sounds easy and you have some things in mind, but practice is different. So when we send out the first videos to our customers and there was real feedback, instant feedback, the people went, wow, I wouldn't have thought it. And this is the kind of learning and teaching moment that's important, I think, for people to, understand and grasp the social selling stuff. And what I always also see is, if we talk about social selling on a theory level, then you think it's a selling tool. And LinkedIn, for me, the social selling is not about selling in the first place. It's about socializing, getting to know people, exchanging knowledge, and so on. If you have your network going and you grow your network and you have your peers that talk the same language and talk about the same tech stuff you're really passionate about, then the platform will help you. But it doesn't help you if you log in and think, okay, today I'm going to sell anything. It's not going to work like that.
I had someone in a live session about 3 or 4 years ago say to me, Dan, I posted something 4 weeks ago on LinkedIn, and I had a couple of people comment, but I've generated no business from it. I'm like, okay, did you post anything in the months before and anything since? And well, no, because I didn't get any posts from that, any engagement from that particular post. I'm like, okay, let's start again. We have to give to the network. We have to nurture the network. We have to give before we ask. So I think there's a lot of that a lot of your people were sharing with us that it now become second nature for them. I think they've become very good, which I think is testament to your good self. So. But
just one more point, Dan.
Oh, please.
Because it's really interesting, that I experienced myself when I was doing my first post. You click on post and then you think instantly people react to it and love what you're writing, and you're sitting there and saying, okay, it's only 3 people responding. And you have to understand, what content is really useful for people. And don't be disappointed about some posts that don't get that much of a reaction and so on. So I think you just have to get used to what's working, what's not working, and elaborate on what you learn every day.
Yeah, I had another person come up to me at a conference before the pandemic, and the person I'd known for nearly 10 years, and this gentleman said, I love what you post on LinkedIn, keep it going. And I said, okay, well, you can occasionally like something then, so acknowledge it. But and I think it's important for people to realize that people consume this information on LinkedIn. Just because they're not liking or commenting or whatever, they're still consuming it, and you're still influencing the people that you're connecting with, your customers, about who you are and what Vodafone Business does. And but again, it's a lift, right? It's a level of effort that sellers need to do, which maybe is a muscle memory they haven't exercised before.
Exactly. But as you said, I mean, I had a business trip to Washington, D.C. 2 months ago. And I posted something on LinkedIn, and people knew I was there, even though they didn't like it on LinkedIn. Exactly as you said. They knew, hey, you were in Washington. And I was like, how do you know? Well, I saw it on LinkedIn. So people recognize what you're posting, even though they don't interact on the platform. That's true.
When I chat with leaders of sales like yourself, a big pain point for them, particularly right now, is hiring. And it obviously seems to be very much a candidate market. So is bringing top talent into Vodafone Business a primary focus for you right now? And if it is, what are some of the techniques that you as a leader do to keep that talent bench warm?
Well, actually, it is for any company that wants to grow. It's important to attract talent and always, keep the talent you have and attract new talent, of course. And there are other companies trying to attract talent, so you need to find some ways of differentiating yourselves. And there, I mean, we have some different elements we use. For example, last week, I'm not sure if you saw that, we used LinkedIn. We did a live session on LinkedIn, talking about our business, that people that were interested about Vodafone business, what are we doing? What's on our agenda today? How are we like? So we had different levels of employees in that session. And so we try to be close to the candidates so that they can ask questions, they understand what we're about, and they kind of grasp, what our spirit is and how cool we are as a company, actually. So this is one element. Another element is we just launched a new full flex methodology. So people are now able to really do their own schedule when they work, where they work. So in Germany, for example, the teams are able to work 20 days a year in other European countries. And this is, we got some really positive press about this, because this is really taken the next step in, flexibilizing working habits. And we really think that, especially young people expect flexible work environments. They expect that their leaders trust themselves, that, when I started working, if you weren't in the office, you weren't working from a point of view of the managers, right? So, and this totally changed. And I think this is important for candidates to understand that, if they start with Vodafone, the trust is there, they get the flexibility to work where they want, and the output is relevant and not, where the work has been done.
I love it. Now, before Vodafone, Siemens, and when you were at Siemens, you were head of marketing and communications. So I've got to ask you, it's a massive topic right now, but what's your take on this always and much discussed topic of sales and marketing alignment?
Well, that's a great question, actually. And I really like that question, because it implies that there's still like kind of a friction between the marketing and the sales departments. And from my perspective, I've been in sales a long time, in marketing also 10 years, I think. And I think the most important part to understand is that it needs to be an integrated approach of marketing and sales, because we know from research that our customers engage with the salespeople way long down the buying track, right? So they've done like research, they talk to other customers, they found some stuff in the internet, they read some white papers, and then they eventually reach out to suppliers and partners. And if you've understood that, then you understand that marketing is a key important role in the whole sales process. So it's not sales doing the sales, it's the whole organization doing the sales. And so my aim is always to integrate and to understand how we can bring down the silos, and how can we integrate marketing and sales units to really get the best outcome.
And you're in a unique situation, I think, where not many senior sales execs have also spent a good quality of time in a senior marketing position as well. So you have that unique perspective. And maybe that's part of the reason why you're so well respected in the industry, because I want to talk a little bit about your leadership style. How would you describe it? And do you feel as though it has changed or developed over time?
Well, yes, definitely. So when I started my leadership career, I was, I think, 27. I got my first sales leadership role at Siemens, selling PBX systems. And of course, I was young. My team was very experienced, and there was this young guy coming into the team. And so I really, remember that, even though it's been 20 years ago, right? So yeah, it's changed a lot. I've done a lot of experience since then, and I think my leadership style now is kind of adaptive, right? So I really believe in that you need to adapt to the situation. So if you are in a crisis mode, you have another leadership style than if you're not. So this is one point. I think you need to adapt to the situation and to the goals. That's one. And the other one, I think, is really important to really trust your people, understand, what motivates them, understand, what blocks them, help them to get the blocking points away, and trust in their ability to grow and their ability to perform. So I think this is, and I think also I like people. I like to talk to people, and that's why I'm sales right now. And this is also important for leaders. I think that you like to interact with your people, and you like to understand, what's going on and what can be done to become better every day.
Yeah, I think you've created, from my my experience speaking with your people, this safe environment that we mentioned earlier on, where people feel comfortable coming to yourself and your other leaders when they are in those moments where they do need help, whether it's business or personal, and it's okay to be vulnerable and go to senior leaders. So I think that's, again, testament to yourself. You've got a big job. And it can be intense at times, particularly end of quarter, end of financial year. So how do you stay balanced with such a big role and so much responsibility? What's the key?
Well, I'm not always balanced, to be honest, right? So it doesn't work every day, actually. But I think one part of my balance comes from my family. I think you can resonate with that, actually.
Yeah.
I have two boys, 6 and 7 years old. I now have a dog. My family thought we need to have a dog.
Love it.
So when I come home, either the dog jumps up onto me or the kids are. So this is, I think, a big thing to get another perspective and not think about business 24/7.
Yeah, as you know, I've got and for the listeners, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old going on 18 very quickly, and then a baby due next month, which is exciting. Another boy. But in terms of having kids and being a father, do you what have you? It's a big question. What have you learned about yourself since becoming a father?
One thing I learned, actually, is that I make mistakes all year, every day, actually. So I make so many mistakes as a father, you can't count, I think. And this is one I learned. I had to learn because I always want to be more perfect, and but as a father, you're never perfect. That's my experience as well. And the other thing is what I learned also during the pandemic, that my kids copy me, right? So they sit down, they build a desk, they take a laptop, then they type and say, "Daddy, I'm working as you are." I'm like, "What are you doing?" And they copy you, right? So it shows that you really need to be thinking about how do you behave and what kind of role model are you for your kids. So it's a big responsibility, and you always get the feedback because you get instant feedback from kids. They don't have a political agenda, exactly what's going on. So
there's no filter, right?
Exactly.
And what about again, being a father, has it impacted your approach to leadership and to business at all?
Well, I think it's the biggest thing is that I learned not only to think about the professional dimension of my people, right? So there's always more to persons than their professional life, and it's always good and to understand what situation are people in. Especially during the pandemic, there I learned, you had single people living home alone that were, not seeing anybody during a year, which is different than, parents that are home as well with their kids because school wasn't working. They had to work. They had to, take care of their kids and so on. So there are different backgrounds, and you need to take it into account, that everybody has a different background, and that's therefore they need some kind of different leadership as well.
Yeah, I love it. And also using channels like this, Zoom, Teams, whatever it is. Yes, with employees, but then also with customers, and you're essentially being let into their homes, right? And I feel personally that I've gotten to know people arguably better in the last 2 years using these kind of technologies than I did previously.
Isn't that perfect? I mean, we are like, I think 7,000 miles away. I'm not sure about it, the perfect number, but we're still talking like you were sitting on the couch. So this is the kind of technology I really love, and I really love being in this and living during this time where technology evolves every day, and we really used to and you can use that kind of technology. That's great.
Well, let's go there, because on your profile it actually said, and I quote, "I get really excited about using new technology and gadgets, e.g. smart home appliances." So I've got to ask you, what's the latest gadget in your household?
Well, actually, there's two. One of course, one is a dog tracker, right? So if the dog speeds up and I don't know where it is, I can, use my smartphone and see where it is. Actually, this is a Vodafone device. So we entered the consumer IoT market a couple of years back, which is great. And the other thing, I'm not sure if you would call it a gadget, actually, is the solar panels on my roof. So they have been installed last month, and I learned, okay, November, December is not the best time to, start a solar power business. But still, I'm really enthusiastic about, having a look in the app and see how much power has been produced during the day. So this is really fun, and I really like, to see that happen.
Nice. Now, I'm sure over the years there's been some influential people who have had an impact on you in your career. What's the best leadership advice that you've ever received?
Well, I think when I started my sales career as a young salesman, there was one colleague that coached me a little, and he told me, take a look at the sales guys you really love, take a look at, what do they do, and then don't try to copy them, but try to, understand, what can you take and what fits your personality, and then integrate it into your daily habits. And this is some advice I still keep in my heart, because I think it's not a good way to copy anybody, but there's so many great people out there that you can learn from, and trying to understand what can you learn from you, Dan, for example, as you started your business, you're so passionate about social selling, you're so energetic about it, so I can learn from you in this space. So and I think there's so many other people that I can learn from, and if you keep that in mind, try to learn every day and understand what makes other people successful, and what can you learn from them. That's the biggest advice I got, and that I would get people today also.
Nice. Now, I asked you earlier on how you stay balanced, and you do seem very balanced from all the interactions that we have. But there has to be frustrations. There have to be things that do rattle you. So what is a non-starter for you, or is there one thing that frustrates you about business, life, or people? What is that one thing?
Well, on a private life, I mean, what I don't like, and it's happening every day actually, is when you have a tight schedule, you want to get your kids in school, and they have some other problem than going to school because something is happening. So, and I still haven't found out, what I can do to,
and let me know when you do.
I just haven't found anything. So any advice is highly appreciated. And in a professional life, I think what I really don't like is, and you tend to have that often in big organizations, if you have like silo thinking, you have like the departments that only think about to make their department successful, and forget about the big goals we all have. So this is declining, but still you have people that think that way. I think in every big company, and this is something I don't like. I always like to have the big view and the view, what does it mean for our customers, and not, what does it mean for any other department internally.
Before we let you go, I want to have a little bit of a quick fire round for you. Are you up for it?
Right, yeah.
Let's do it. All right, okay. So some of these questions I might, depending on your answer, I might push you a little bit. Otherwise, we may just move on. But let's jump straight in. So here we go. Question number one. Andre, who is your hero?
Well, actually, I don't have heroes. There's so many heroes out there. It's not one. I think, as I just said, I don't try to copy anybody, because hero always implies that you have a perfect person, and then you try to copy that person. There's so many heroes out there, and so different perspectives. So not even one, I would say.
Who is, I should say, the best sales leader that you've ever worked for?
Well, same thing, actually. It's not one, right? You always learn from anybody. But I think that the biggest leaders I learned from, they were customer centric, they were empathetic, they were interested in people, they were visionary. They had a clear vision of the future, and they were able to motivate people by talking about this vision and talking about the future and what they want the future to be. And I had some leaders like that, and I really appreciated every one of them.
With a young family, are you a morning lark or a night owl?
Well, actually, when my kids are in bed at night, then I start to do my emails. So probably more a night owl, I would say. Yeah.
What's your favorite city in the world, Andre?
Oh, this is a difficult one, actually. I love traveling and love a lot of cities. But when I was young, I'm living in Germany, and I did an exchange program with the US. So I lived in close to Houston, Texas for a year. And during that year, we did like the East Coast trip, and we headed also to New Orleans. And New Orleans is such a special city with such a special spirit. I would love to go back to New Orleans and grasp that spirit and the jazz and the music and it was just great. I have I should go back to New Orleans someday in the future.
Is there a city or a country that you haven't been to before that you would really like to visit?
Well, yes. I mean, there's so many. For example, in Africa, I've only been to South Africa until now, which is a great country. But I mean, if you fly from Europe to Africa, to South Africa, you see, how many countries you're flying about. And so there's so many places you could go. You just have to focus, and you can't visit every 200 of them, I guess.
How many cups of coffee a day?
Well, max 3, I would say.
So you have a max.
Max 3. I remember when I was on vacation and there wasn't a decent coffee machine. I didn't have any coffee, and then I got headaches, right? And I was like, why do I get headaches? And I was thinking about, okay, it might be because I consume too much coffee, and since then I try to have a max number of coffee today.
Last question for you. What would you tell your younger self?
Well, this is another important question, I would say. I think I would say, don't ever be too focused, and allow yourself also to not only be too professional, because when I started my career, I was really focused on getting the next step, and like kind of a little heavy into I need to move on and so on. So my advice would be relax, have your goals set, but also, don't be too hard to yourself, and then understand, what's important and what maybe not that important at the point of time.
Beautiful advice. Thank you. Well, Andre, thank you for joining us today. I do appreciate you.
Dan, thank you. It was fun.